Paul Hardy, the CEO of Aurecon, is going to deliver tonight's keynote address. And in many ways, Paul is ideally placed to comment on not only the responsibilities, but the challenges that leading companies such as Aurecon not only have, but face. Following Paul's address, we're going to be joined by Simon Longstaff, who, in addition to being the Executive Director of the St James Ethics Centre, is also the Director of PSI. So I'd like you to join with me in welcoming Paul Hardy to deliver the inaugural keynote address.
Thank you, Sean. We at Aurecon we start all our meetings with a safety moment, and I won't perhaps do that here because it's not actually an Aurecon meeting, but being in a lecture theatre does take me back to my undergraduate and postgraduate days at Monash. And I must admit, back in those days of being less mature, we used to send down a variety of paper planes and other objects towards our lecturers who put up with it for some reason. So I'm just hoping we're all a little bit more mature than that and we don't have a safety moment. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me start by thanking you, Kevin, and the Principals for Social Investments Secretariat for inviting me here today to say a few words ahead of the main event, which is clearly the announcement of the 2012 International Social Investment Pioneer Awards. And let me say that I'm just delighted to be here. So as Chief Executive of a global and technical services provider business which works across 80 countries, and we have 7,500 people spread across those countries, the challenge of growing a successful and indeed a sustainable business is with me from the moment I get up until the moment I go to sleep. And really, in terms of our business, it's sort of there every moment in between. So I'm a strong supporter of the principles and the achievements which these awards seek to recognise. But I stand here not just in the role as Chief Executive of Aurecon, which, by the way, I talk about what I do from morning to night, but it's an absolute privilege and a pleasure to have that position, but also as an individual and someone who cares personally what happens in the world, and would like to think that in my time in charge and in influence of this organisation, that I do have an opportunity with myself and my executive team and others to actually make a difference. And if being here tonight persuades anyone here in the room that we should do more and that we could do more to harness the power of business, to drive improved social outcomes in all sorts of places where daily life is a struggle, then from my point of view, it's been time well spent. And just to give a perspective, we as Aurecon, our employees, our people, our teams live and work in countries where people go hungry, where 1 in 5 children are underweight, where up to 1 in 10 children die before reaching their 5th birthday, and where large numbers of people live on less than $1.25 a day. So for our people, and indeed for Aurecon in these countries, we can't, and we believe, sit back and simply ignore all of this and ignore the realities of it. We are involved, and I'll talk about that in a moment. These are the same challenges, incidentally, which are captured so clearly in the United Nations Millennium Development Goals, and the achievement of which the principles of the Social Investment Secretariat was established to support. And while we should never overestimate what we can achieve alone, we also shouldn't underestimate what we can achieve together. Coordinated effort on the behalf of business has the potential to significantly reduce hardship and to raise standards of living right across the board. There are now numerous examples of corporate initiatives which are changing people's lives for the better, such as those competing for tonight's awards. Just a little while back I was interviewed on similar issues, and I was asked if I could ask an oracle about a couple of big issues that will influence the world, what would they be? And without much hesitation, I replied, world poverty and climate change. So I'd like to speak a little bit about those two things, particularly from a business perspective and also from the perspective as an engineer. From a poverty standpoint, my initial experience has all been in Asia, where I worked for over 20 years. But our involvement in Africa now, over the last 4 years, has been a real eye-opener for me in terms of my engagement in a place that gave me a profound shock, quite frankly, in terms of what I've seen and what I've experienced in the last 4 years. And I was particularly affected by a trip several years ago through Africa, where it became clear to me that we're working in some of the poorest countries in the world. But what really hit me was this, that as we travelled along, I was struck by the limited infrastructure. As we traversed from south to north in this country, the extreme and heart-rending poverty that was evident, particularly amongst the children that I saw, who were clearly not just hungry and not just poor, but they were desperate. And not only that, I saw no opportunity of getting out of it, no opportunity of education, and really no hope. And as we walked through, war junk littered the route, emphasising much of the roots of this man-made suffering. But then as we arrived in the capital city, it became very clear to me that there were resources available to alleviate this suffering, but there was no way they were going to be shared. This, it seems to me, is the reason for much poverty. And if you could change this through dignified development and support, such that it's possible to give people back their own futures, that would make the world a much better place. So with regard to the second part of my answer, and that's climate change, this is clearly one of the big unknowns, but it has the potential to create tremendous upheaval. And quite frankly, it annoys me that we're doing so poorly at getting to grips with something that, as an engineer, we know must be imminently solvable. My children, we have 4 Gen Y children, and if you know anything about Gen Y children, I'd be happy if you could let me know. But what they say to me consistently is, you guys made this mess, and when are you going to fix it? At the moment, quite frankly, I don't have a really good reply to that, other than say to them that they have the ability to help us change it, but that doesn't cut a lot of ice with Gen Ys. What is so frustrating is that the people who do have the ability to make a difference in this space, and engineers in particular, but certainly not limited to engineers, are not always at the heart of the debate or the discussion. In the main, it seems to be dominated by people who, quite frankly, don't have the knowledge or don't have the agenda to make a difference. In addition to coordinated political will, the answers lie in technology, and engineers have a huge ability to help fix this. Progress so far is limited, but that doesn't mean we should stop. Sooner or later, this has to be dealt with. I'm enormously proud of our international development business, several of whom Aurecon people are here tonight, which assists people, communities, organisations and governments in taking charge of their own development, as does such obviously valuable work. To give an example, as managing contractor for AusAid's rural water supply and sanitation program in Timor-Leste over the past 5 years, our Aurecon teams have supported 67,000 people in gaining access to basic sanitation, and over 200,000 people have been introduced to an improved water supply. These are richly rewarding programs which our staff, quite rightly, and we generally take great pride in. Other than through our international development work, however, Aurecon can have very little impact on the political landscape, other than advisors helping politicians try and understand the technical issues, and also helping our clients to understand this in terms of technology and human impact. But what we can do is contribute to improvements by the way that we work, ensuring that we leave our communities we engage with much better off than when we started, which is why we've included making a real difference in the communities in which we work one of the central themes, one of the 7 central themes of our corporate strategy of towards 2020. In terms of our strategy in places like Africa, for example, if we look at the continent of Africa right now, and if we look at the business drivers for the continent of Africa right now, we are the only company that I'm aware of who has a long-term belief and a long-term connection with the continent. We see our competitors coming in, taking what they can, be it an oil project, be it a resources project, and quite frankly buggering off. Our strategy is to become part of the communities and to develop with them in a very sustainable way, and I can assure you that that strategy will continue. Our belief is we can't benefit from working in the emerging economies and not leave something behind, and our people, not just our leadership, demand better than that. We can also work with our peers in the engineering community, leading initiatives that mean that together we can make a genuine difference. And it's against this background that I'm delighted to announce tonight the launch of our new Contributing to Communities program. The program will provide focused and highly visible support to help address significant social issues and enable us to build a position by measuring and managing selected indicators that are recognised worldwide as being measures of good corporate responsibility. These include using the Global Reporting Index, GRI, to measure and manage selected key indicators that are recognised now worldwide as being measures of good corporate responsibility. These are things covering energy usage and water usage and many other things. Also, as part of this program, we'll progressively improve our performance in these and other social areas. And in addition to what we already spend, and by the way, we make a financial commitment to social programs of well over 1% of our annual profit, there are great voluntary contributions from our people as well in making their local communities develop. But in addition to that, we will establish and manage a central Aurecon fund, which will support innovation that results in greater resilience in the communities worldwide. I hope and I expect that some of these innovative new projects facilitated through our new fund will be competitive entries in these awards in future years. Just going back to the interview that I talked about before, the same interviewer asked me, what do you want to be remembered for? CEOs always want to be remembered for something good. Not all are. My answer was making a difference, but just to explain that, I didn't wish that to be about me. What I'd rather be remembered for is bringing people together and teams together, groups of people that collectively make a difference. And this is really what our program is all about. So that we can look backwards and say that we made real progress in social programs, in mobilising teams that do make a difference in the world, and that is Team Aurecon. I'm constantly impressed by the skills and innovation of our Aurecon people, and I want us to continue to punch above our weight in delivering global change for good. So my presence here tonight and Aurecon's support for the Principles for Social Investment Secretariat evidences our commitment to playing our part in advocating the potential for business to drive change for good through the way we work. Social investment isn't just important to us, it's also important to our clients, a number of whom are here tonight. Our largest clients are as powerful economically as some of the countries in which we operate. And they understand only too well the absolute responsibility which this brings. Operating on a business government-to-government level at national, provincial and local levels, wherever they engage. Our job is to help them do as effectively as they can, whether extracting resources, which we do, integrating transport systems, which we do, or sharing value with the communities in which we operate. As supply chains lengthen, social licence to operate becomes increasingly a national or a regional concern, rather than a local one, and our clients are looking for support in enabling structured engagement with government and communities to enable benefits to be shared in an inclusive and a transparent way. So for Aurecon and our clients, social investment is therefore not so much about altruism as for the coincidence of commercial and social opportunity. The best corporate responsibility initiatives are scalable and sustainable because they are mainstreamed in the way we operate. So in conclusion, tonight's awards recognise those who are leaders in this field and whose efforts and achievements we should all celebrate. I commend and congratulate all those who've taken part in the awards process. You are an example to us all, and I wish you all the very best of luck. And thank you very much.